Cosmic Conference, where we dive deep into the unseen realms of energy, consciousness, and spiritual transformation. I'm your host, Sana, and today we are exploring a topic that so many of us wrestle with: surrender, faith, and discovering our true purpose. Now, how do we stop resisting, let go of control, and trust that the universe has a plan for us? And to help me with these questions, our guest today has lived this transformation firsthand. Listeners, meet Lydia Kimmerling, and she's a master life coach and energy healer who has worked with billionaires, celebrities, and high achievers to help them move beyond external success and into deep spiritual fulfillment. But her journey didn't start here. After a life altering encounter with seven blue cloaked beings and over 100 energy activations, she found herself catapulted into a new reality, one where she could channel her divine wisdom, read energy, and also guide others to their highest potential. And today she's here on Cosmic Confluence to share her personal awakening story and offer powerful insights into how surrender and faith can actually unlock a life of true purpose. So, if you have ever felt lost or stuck, this episode is definitely for you. So, Lydia, welcome to the show, and it's an absolute honor having you with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Lydia, when I was reading your intro, especially in the second para, about your life altering encounter, it kind of gave me a bit of goosebumps and, a kind of curiosity to know what exactly was that life altering moment. So, if you can share that awakening experience with all of us.
Yeah, I'd love to. So, I've been on a spiritual path for many years, but with this awakening, it it's layered and it comes in stages. But the year that it really felt like it accelerated, and the year where it opened up a lot of gifts for me was in 2023. Um, I need to start a few months before coming into that year because I had reached a crossroad where I'd been asking God a question. Um, my life on the outside was really great. I'd accomplished everything that I wanted to accomplish, but I was tired and I was very, very busy, and I was dipping in and out of burnout, and I just felt like, really, God, is this really what you wanted for me? I just find it hard to believe that this is really how you want me to feel. And I found myself, not for the first time, this would have been the second time, on my knees, really just begging and in deep surrender. And I said at that time, listen, you can just take everything I know to be true about myself. You can take my business, you can take my home, you can take my identity, whatever it is you think that I am holding on to, I surrender it to you. I just want to know what my true purpose is. So then fast forward a few months in January.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, actually, after that, I experienced 10 days of spiritual bliss. So immediately after that, I felt I'm high, like I was being held. I'd kind of fallen back into the arms of this energy that I knew was there, but I hadn't really fully allowed to step in. And my thoughts were really quiet, and it really felt like this spiritual bliss. But life, as it does, it called me back to it. And I went back to work, but I knew that I also needed to simplify. And then in 2023, January, I was choosing to be in much more stillness, much more surrender, and really listening and allowing so much of what I had been doing to fall away. And in my meditation, I started to notice energy coming in. It was coming in through my hands, through my body. And I just allowed it. I allowed my body to be my mind. And it was clearing things, moving this energy around. And I started to realize that I was in collaboration with spirit. It wasn't just me and my body, that I was being guided by an energy. And these are what I call the activations, because they came more physical, much stronger. And some of them were really, really profound. But the point at which I really knew that something was happening, and when things really sped up, was in around April that year. My mentor, who had been my spiritual mentor, passed away. And when he passed away, I started to hear his voice. He was speaking to me, even though he wasn't here. And I was able to corroborate a lot of the things that he was saying with his wife. And so I knew, well, I'm saying something's going on here. And it was a few days after I'd found out, or after his funeral, I can't remember, but I'd been really crying outside on my balcony. And I thought, I need to go back in and start my day. So I walked back into the house, and something just sort of kicked me in the back of my knees. There was nobody there. And I kind of fell to my sofa, not aggressively, but just it made me sit. And then I heard his voice, and he said, "Don't worry, everything's going to be okay." And my right arm just started to lift up to the sky, and it wasn't me doing it. And I could feel his presence there. But at the same time, I saw these 7 beings who were wearing blue cloaks that had hoods, and they sort of just appeared in front of me, not in physical form, like
Mhm.
holographic form.
Like
And
apparitions.
sorry?
Like apparitions.
Yes, yes, exactly. And they said to me, "We're going to take care of you now, and you're going to find out exactly who you are and why you're here and what you're here to do. And your energy is your currency." Um,
Okay.
and then I had another kind of activation. And after that, I was like, okay, did that just happen? And it felt a little bit like a riddle, because it made sense, but it didn't make sense. And then the next 6 months from there were really quite wild, with mystical experiences. But what they said then makes complete sense to me now, and it has all come to an understanding that feels very true.
Wow. Wow. That must have been overwhelming at first, for you, Lydia. So how did you navigate this shift from your old reality to embracing these new gifts? I mean, was there any fear, or did it feel like an instant knowing?
There was a lot of fear, and the whole process was really to clear all of that fear.
Mm.
Even though, I'd been a life coach for many, many years, so I'd done a lot of work on myself, and I'd cleared a lot of blocks. I wasn't somebody who I'd say lived in fear.
Mhm.
But it goes deep, right? And especially when you start working with the supernatural, and your whole belief system is challenged in such a way that
Yeah.
it really breaks down your reality. And with the gifts that were opening up, like the channeling and reading light code, speaking light language, it required another layer of surrender that was deep into the unknown. So I was consistently in that process, kind of constantly meeting myself, another edge of myself, to dissolve fear and beliefs that would have held me back from this level of expansion.
Mm. Also, when we talk about the power of surrender and spiritual growth, many people resist it because they associate it with giving up control. But you
Mm.
say that surrender is actually the key to alignment. So, can you explain what true surrender means and how it leads to finding our purpose?
Mm. Yeah, and I also want to add, surrender will look different for everybody. This is a wild story, and it certainly doesn't mean that it would be this way for you, nor does it make me special or more spiritual. I know why it had to be this way for me, right? To really go where I'm going, do what I'm going to be doing, and have certain belief systems broken. But surrender, yeah, a lot of the time it can be perceived as giving up or um well, yeah, giving up. But actually what you're doing is you're getting yourself out of the way
Yeah.
so that something greater than you, which for me is, I would say, I'd call God, but you could say universe, source. It's the energy of all things at all times in all ways can support you and actually do what's best for you. So surrendering is accepting that you don't know everything, you don't have to be in control of everything, and that there is something that loves you so deeply that will come and help you when you really ask for it.
Mm, that's really a powerful shift in perspective, Lydia. So, are there any specific exercises or mindset shifts that can help, you know, someone who is struggling to let go if they wish to practice surrender in their daily lives?
Yeah, because the way that I did it was big, but I also want to say I thought I had surrendered many times before. And what was different with this time was that in the past, when I'd surrendered, I was still attached to an outcome. So I was surrendering, but my energy really, if I was honest with myself, was like, I'm surrendering. Now what do I get? Where's my reward? Where's my outcome? And this time it really wasn't. And I think that for many, it is a case of a layered response to your experiences and healing where you are able to trust more and surrender a bit more, trust more and surrender a bit more. So if that full surrendering feels overwhelming or just too far away from where you are right now, really just small steps. What is the one problem that you have on your plate right now? And I would maybe journal on that problem and then imagine, because again, you don't have to even believe in God at this stage, right? Or in something greater. But clearly, if you're here listening to this and this interests you, you want your life to be easier. So if we just focus on the practical, that, well, you want life to be easier. So imagining that there was a greater power, if you could just imagine that there was, what one thing from this problem would you love to just let go of and give away? And I would just say, just play with it. What, how could you hand that over? And, the letting go of it is the not worrying about it. It's the not thinking about it all the time. It's not trying to push too hard, not trying to make something happen. And it doesn't have to be the whole problem, but maybe there's just one piece in there. And play, even if it's just for
Yeah, yeah.
well, 7 days. Okay, 7 days. I'm going to imagine that there. Mhm.
Mhm. And I believe that, or just as an observation, that one of the biggest barriers to surrender is fear. Fear of uncertainty or failure, or even maybe making the wrong decision. uh, so how can we cultivate faith when our logical mind is always screaming for control?
Yeah, so I think that the reason we struggle so much with faith is because we lack trust, and that trust is lacking in ourselves. And the reason we lack trust so much in ourselves is because we don't know ourselves very well. Most of us have become very disconnected from ourselves to the point where you almost feel like a stranger to yourself. And that happens through being too busy, distracting yourself, numbing yourself. So I don't think we can always, it's hard to imagine having faith in something that you can't even see. So start with practicing trusting yourself and doing that by getting to know yourself better, which is essentially kind of doing the work, the self inquiry, Um, and I think the easiest way, or not necessarily effortless, but it is the best way to get started is with meditation. If you just start to schedule just 10 minutes a day to be with yourself in silence, you are then actually also being with this energy. And then you are connecting back to yourself, which will then mean you're no longer a stranger, so you can trust yourself. When you can trust yourself, you can trust life. And once you start trusting life, you can have faith in the creator of it.
True, true. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense, Lydia. Now, on the contrary, let's just try to understand this from the listener's perspective. Some would say that surrendering is just another way of avoiding responsibility, that
Mhm.
people would use trusting the universe as an excuse for not taking action. So, how would you respond to that, Lydia?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So there's a belief that surrendering is just another way of avoiding responsibility,
Mm, mm,
maybe using trusting the universe as an excuse for inaction. So, how would
mm.
you respond to this perspective?
Yeah. It's funny. I was just asking God this question today about laziness because
Yeah.
I haven't been productive today. Everything in my being was saying, "Be still, still, Lydia, be still." And yesterday, my thought was, "Oh, tomorrow's going to be such a productive day." And one of the gifts that opened up for me is that I can like write and channel, and God speaks to me very clearly when I do that. So I wrote the question. I said, "God, am I lazy for not being motivated today?" And what was explained to me was that God's often is speaking to us in the call for stillness. And if everybody listened to that call, the world would be such a better place because it's in that stillness that God can work through us. Yet we are taught that to create what we desire, we must do something. And yet God wants us to understand that everything has already been given just in our being. So there is there's two perspectives on responsibility and taking responsibility.
Mhm.
You can be responsible in your devotion and your commitment and your listening to that guidance. And that is enough. But you don't have to be responsible for making it all happen.
Mhm.
And actually, so much happens in the stillness. And I think, when you really start to practice this, you know if you are avoiding
Mhm.
or if you are in alignment and you're seeking that alignment.
Okay. Mm. That really makes good sense. I think it's more about definitely alignment. It's basically surrender is actually about aligned action rather than just waiting for things to happen.
Mm.
So, Lydia, I think this has been such an illuminating conversation, very comforting and very enlightening. So, of course, if our listeners would wish to connect with you, how they can do that.
I'd love to connect with your listeners, and you can find me over on Instagram at Lydia Kimmerling, my full name, or over on my website. I have a lot of free things there that you can get started with, meditations and courses. Or, of course, you want to book a one-to-one channeling session with me. Excuse me, my website is thehappinessexplorer.com. I would love to see you over there.
Okay, we'll have the details mentioned in the show notes. And Lydia, thank you so much for sharing your journey and also your wisdom with us. Definitely such an enlightening conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
And to all of you listening, if this episode resonated with you, Make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And also, you can refer to the show notes along with this episode to connect with Lydia and check out all her resources. And I would like to add before wrapping it up that surrender isn't about losing control. It's about gaining alignment, as all we learned from Lydia today. So, until next time, keep your heart open and your faith strong. Thank you.